make sure it works. All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our weekly Tuesday Talk conversation series. We have a very special guest today, and I've actually met Tiffany before, a long time ago, and I'm so happy that she has transitioned to this new journey in her life, and she's going to discuss everything about her new endeavors as a coach and kind of a healing individual that has become a very part of her life now. So I want to welcome everyone to Tiffany Mendelson. And Tiffany, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about.
Yes, well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. As she said, my name is Tiffany Mendelson. I am a lifestyle and health coach. I actually coach part time. My full time job is in sales. And then, as my hobby, or what a lot of people like to say, my passion, is to train and race and half Ironman. I'm definitely somebody who has been active my whole entire life. I like to say my mom and dad, they had me in a lot of energy depleting activities. So I was very fortunate. They had me in everything from horseback riding, piano lessons, theater. My father would buy me all the Billy Blank Taibo workouts that I did religiously. And it was in middle school when I started to become almost like a support and accountability system to a lot of my friends. I would even remember some of my friends' parents calling me saying, "Hey, let's work out with, come over and work out with so and so." And it felt good. It felt good to be that person to share my passion of working out with others. But little did I know at that time, and did a lot of other people, that working out was more of a compulsion to me, that it was more to hide a lot of the pain that I was holding inside from trauma. And very quickly in middle school, I started having unhealthy relationships to food. I started drugs in high school and also turned to people, just to make myself feel like I was in control of my life.
So you've always been active. I know you talked about, your parents kind of kept you kind of you mentioned that you were kind of a hyper child. At what point did you feel that you were just kind of that negative turn when it came to activities, even at a young age?
When did it turn negative?
Mm-hmm.
So it was in middle school. So at the age of 3, my mother passed away. And when that happened, I was very confused of what's going on. And I had some trauma going on. I had vivid memories of my father literally ripping me away from a woman who I thought was my mother. Later found out it was my mom's cousin, that looked just like her. I remember crying, tears, snot everywhere, clinging onto this woman being ripped away. And I was confused. And not too long after she passed, my father got an amazing job opportunity in Texas. So it was my brother, myself, and I. We packed up, came to Texas. And little did we know that my next door neighbor would soon be my new mother, right? And she is a beautiful, amazing woman. She did what she could do best, was take care of my brother and I. And after they got married, we moved in, but that, of course, didn't change anything of my feelings. And of course, I felt like I was placed in a very chaotic atmosphere. Um, and when that happened, I felt out of control. I felt like I started developing different types of compulsions to food, to drugs, to even people. Um, and it was, I was like that for about 10 years. So about 10 years, a lot of therapy, and one 5-year relationship that I start changing into more healthier habits. And then when that happened after my breakup for 5 years, I moved back home. I was broke. I didn't have a job. I just graduated college. I didn't have any friends. And it took about 6 to 8 weeks for me to get back on my feet. And during that 6 to 8 weeks, I remember laying on my bedroom floor, staring at the ceiling, and I started meditating. Didn't really realize what I was doing, but just trying to figure out ways to calm myself down, to get myself back on my feet. And then I started running, every weekend. And before you know it, I was running 10, 11 miles on the weekend. And then eventually, one of my friends introduced me to triathlon. And that's really when my life started making a turn. There was 3 sports that I can bounce around to. And I am someone that gets bored very easily. So being able to bounce to each one definitely fulfilled everything that I need. You know, the sense of accomplishment I got for the fact that I was very quiet as a child. I could still suffer in silence without anyone bothering me. And then, of course, still being someone that inspirational to others, I was still able to do that as well. And surprisingly enough, it became a healthy outlet for me. I got a triathlon coach eventually, and right when I got on board with him, I still had a pretty unhealthy relationship to food. And here he is talking about, nutrition, fueling your body. And I'm just like, don't talk to me about this stuff. I'm struggling inside. Just leave me alone. Let me be quiet and do my thing. And he eventually broke down my walls, I would like to say, through a structured workout program and hammering, down the walls with food. Did I start, taking away the negative thoughts about food to actually feed my body the way that it is, because my passion and my love is to be healthy. And I always wanted to grow and get out of the hamster wheel of just going in circles with, not loving myself. So that's really when things started changing.
So tell our viewers, because I mean that's something that you know I would love for you to share your story as far as when we hear the terminology lifestyle and health coach. What does that really mean, and how did you come about as now you becoming that lifestyle and health coach that you're daily motivating women and individuals all the time?
Well, I would say it started back in middle school, right? So I was already inspiration and a support system, which I absolutely loved. And so that kind of started in the background in middle school. And then, of course, I changing myself and being able to see other people as well going through similar stories that I did. I wanted to reach out and help. I felt like as a child, I wasn't able to voice my opinions or really speak out. So I really wanted to be kind of a sounding board for other people. And the lifestyle and health coach part, funny story. So one of my friends, he would keep calling me a lifestyle and health coach. I'm like, I'm not a lifestyle and health coach. I'm a life and health coach. But it kind of transitioned because I realized that health is a journey, right? It's a lifestyle. It's just not a one and done thing. I don't hand people diets or workout plans. It's a journey. So you actually go and you're going to build a foundation of, where you are at that time. And then you're going to build on top of that until you get to the level of success, which honestly, there is no ceiling for that. So you keep on moving up farther and farther. So that's how it really came about for me to be a lifestyle and health coach. So I thank my friend for that. And also thank, God for showing me exactly that the journey of health is definitely a lifestyle change.
So to add that, I know a lot of clients come to you as far as where do they even begin? Where's that beginning point? What tools do you create to kind of sustain those healthy habits, and what's kind of the starting point if someone that wants to make a complete transition? What would be your advice to kind of get them on board?
So when it comes to that, obviously a commitment. Being committed to the transition is a huge thing. That's the fastest way definitely to build your confidence and self-esteem for what you're about to embark on. And then what I do with my clients is, we set goals. So we find a goal that's a big enough chunk size, but also manageable within a certain time frame. I like to look at things for 90 days, where you can pick one very big habit or one new goal with very small ones. So for instance, I wouldn't say, hey, for 90 days, let's do an Ironman, a marathon, and a 5K swim. It's not going to work like that. So you can choose something like, let me build up to a 10K and maybe work on my nutrition. So maybe we'll add more water into your routine over the next 90 days. So after we have the goals set, what we do is an exercise I love doing and do to this day. It's called clearing the clutter. So we look at their lives physically, emotionally, and figure out what it is that we can clear out of their life to pave the way for them to start making the changes. So you can think of it like this, like you have a house and you want to redecorate it. So to redecorate it, you're not going to start piling in all the new stuff and keep all the old stuff in there. You got to clean out the old stuff to get the new stuff in. So that's what we do. We look at their environment. It could be something as simple as clearing out the closet. We look at the people that they hang out with, and that can usually take some time to let go. But studies have shown, like, as you let go of certain people that you're trying to fix or don't serve you well, you can have 10 to 10 to 20% increase of space mentally, which is awesome, right? And then we also look at their finances and, anything from how do you hold your money, or maybe you have rotating credit card bills with small little things that you don't use. I know for me, Apple was a huge one. I had all these dollars or $2 going on my bank account every month that I never used. So it's really just clearing out all the clutter to bring stuff in. After you have all that done, we anchor in the habits. And anchoring is pretty much using something in your physical environment that you can use to remind you of why it is that you're doing this. So it could be something as simple as a necklace, a tattoo, a body part, and it's almost like going to be a scratch record for that person to be an influx of energy of, oh, okay, this is why I'm doing this. And it helps a lot of people as well, including myself. Whenever I might be deterring from my goal, it kind of sets me back on track when I don't have a physical accountability person in front of me. And so after we do anchors, I usually focus on energy after that, because you cannot really, you can't do anything if you don't have energy, right? So for instance, with the health coaching that I do, we focus on the energy foods, like what foods give you energy, what foods take away energy. And we dive deep into it, even to the T of like, what time of day do you eat it? How do you feel? Like, who are you being when you're eating? And we really start having them create awareness around how they are when they're eating, if it's because they're stressed out. And what a lot of people also don't know is when you're stressed out, you can binge eat whenever you're really happy stressed, like, oh, my friend's getting married, let's have 10 pieces of cake. Or, we had a really tough conversation with my manager, so I'm going to go eat a bag of potato chips. So it kind of goes both ways, and having them create awareness is the first step to hone in their energy so they can actually complete their goal. And of course, it goes a lot further than that, of honoring yourself, learning to respect yourself and set boundaries. A lot of people, including myself in the past, would eat so much till you were sick. And so having a scale, I call it the hunger scale, right? You have it from 1 to 10. So usually someone that I would coach would be like, okay, well, you got to start planning for food at 2, which is usually when you start getting hungry. And then you're going to eat, when you do eat, to about a 7 or 8, and then you stop, and of course record your feeling, how you felt, so you can actually start honing into those things. And of course, on top of that, a lot of mindset work that I talk about with them. There's a lot of meditation, and of course, stepping into your future you, where you're actually visualizing yourself in the future and start showing up for that person.
It seems like you cover it all, huh, Shannon? I feel like I've never heard such in-depth coaching program that covers everything. Like, I'm blown away but it makes total sense. Like when you were talking about, foods, that when you're, those foods that can either mess up your mood or enhance your mood. And I think sometimes when we're on the go and we're stressed, we kind of don't even realize what we're putting in our mouth is just to kind of just, feed for that moment.
Mm-hmm. And it's easy to justify because, oh, I'm really busy. And I mean, I do this all the time, I'm really busy, and there's just not time to do something else. And yes, sometimes that really just is the case, but 9 times out of 10, I'm guessing there are ways to make it happen. Yeah.
So Tiffany, what are some of those kind of healthy foods, for people that are on the go, that are always rushing, that are always busy? What would you recommend would be some of those kind of snacks per se that you need to have?
So for me personally, I like to kind of step away from healthy foods, because a lot of people see healthy as good foods. I just want to pave the way for this real quick, because I know myself struggled with it before, and I'm sure that
right.
Well, so when I talk about food, you have foods that are going to be different for everybody, right? So what might be good for you might not be good for me, right? So with me, dairy is not something that does very well for me, and it might do well for somebody else. So when it comes to healthy foods, it really depends. But obviously when you're having some kind of snack, it's really good to have a little bit of protein, fat, and of course grains in there, or carbs as well, to kind of keep you energized. Fats obviously are going to have a little bit more calories than the other 2 macronutrients, so those are going to keep you fuller longer. But when it comes to on the go like me, I will keep, whenever it's okay to keep food in Houston. Applesauce in my car. I'll get the Lar bars sometimes. Whenever I used to eat meat, I'm a pescatarian now, I would do some beef jerky in the car as well. Also sweet potatoes. You can always, throw those in a little baggie in the morning and keep those in your car with you. Gas stations, nuts are a big one that I'll pick up. Water. Sometimes I do get chocolate. I won't lie. I'm a human. I get that stuff as well. So for those on the go all the time, I would recommend, kind of mapping out where you're going. Maybe there's a fruit stand that you could stop on the way. I do that because I travel a lot. So I kind of know where to go to get healthy fruit or snacks, and also keep water with you at all times as well.
I'm sorry, Carmen, did you want to?
No, I was writing something down.
I have two questions referring to some earlier things that you said, and they're a little heavier. So if do with them what you will, include say no. I'm wondering, as the parent of a teenager, back when you were in middle school and people were really turning to you for a lot, I know that certainly made you feel good. Did it also, do you think, in retrospect, it'll also put some pressure on you that everybody had good intentions. There's no judgment here. But yeah. I think, my gosh, if you've got other friends' parents calling you, that's a lot of responsibility for a not fully formed human yet, I wondered if you might speak about that a little bit.
So it did definitely put pressure on me. And to be honest with you, I could not look back now and feel like, yes, I felt pressured. It really wasn't showing up later on in my life. Did I feel pressure?
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, this is me. This is my identity. It's like, I have to keep up with it. Obviously with my mom passing away and dealing with trauma, and having visualizations of being, ripped away from someone that was my mother, it really embarked on me that I have to keep proving to this person that I can do this. Otherwise they're going to leave. And it was a belief that I had. It was a belief that I had to keep going. So it was like, it was always a push and a pull for me. Right.
Yep.
And so that was like one of the main reasons why I turned to other coping mechanisms, because obviously I did not want to feel anything.
Yeah.
And, drugs, food, people that would make me feel better helped me not feel. Someone else felt for me, or the drugs would feel for me. So it definitely had a lot of pressure on me for sure. Yeah.
And then I think it's quite remarkable that you transformed from working out being an escape mechanism to working out with a healthy outlook that is actually good for you and not, that is extraordinary. It's sort of for people who say, oh, they're trying to quit smoking. This is the negative example of working out, but, they're trying to quit smoking, but then they find a way to just have one a day, or, it's very, alcoholics really can't just, that it's really, pretty cut and dry a lot of the time. I know there are exceptions, of course, but how did you make that change from, this being something you did almost too much of, to, first of all, I can't believe you're already making that transition to the healthy workouts while fighting what sounds like it was probably a bona fide eating disorder, and that you're a triathlon coach. That's, your whole story is extraordinary, but can you talk a little bit about how did you ever have time totally away from working out and then return to it? Or was it really kind of always there? You just shifted where you were mentally?
Well, it was a journey, and it still is a journey. I'm not perfect in all sense, right? So I'll tell you a story. Thinking that, I was free and clear from the compulsive behaviors that I exhibited throughout my whole entire life. Last year, I want to say 2 years ago, I started exhibiting injuries, right? And it got to a point where I could not stop. I could not stop running. I couldn't barely get out of bed and walk, but I went to doctors to get shots, and I would just get them just so I could run the next day. It got to a point where I would try to take off for a month, and it would last maybe a week, and I would be right back into it.
Wow.
And eventually I had to start feeling I guess you can say, because I ripped off so many layers. And what I'm realizing is as you progress farther in life and as you learn more, you're just taking off more and more layers of, different trauma or experiences that you had. Because for myself, I want to go as high as the sky or even farther, right? And so I'm trying to dig deep as much as possible to be the best person and version of person I can be. So it's last year, I had struggled very, very hard. And I'm sure, my triathlon coach at the time tried very hard to support me, and I felt very alone, very like nobody could relate with me. And of course, struggling in silence, I'm a pro at that. So I kept very quiet with a lot of things that was going on in my life. And then it wasn't until probably a couple months ago that I had to stop completely. And I decided to get a new triathlon coach that had a new community that might be able to help me get back on my feet. And so I've literally all last year and even now, I've been learning to sit with my feelings. And it's painful.
It is.
It's
not
very
fun. No.
It's not fun. It's not
It's
fun
very
at
hard
all.
work.
And triathlon has definitely helped me get a lot of the feelings out, for sure. Biking for 5 hours straight on a trainer inside, you'll definitely start thinking a lot about life choices, and that was one of them. But
wow,
definitely been a good coping mechanism for me, and it's been healthy too, because now I can go out and run, and I'm like, okay, if I'm starting to hurt, I'm going to stop. I'm going to start walking. And it's just something that I'm having to train myself to do. And it's humbling as well. Having the pressure that I had growing up as a child, like I was being developed, my brain was getting developed like that. I had to let go of that and start humbling myself and saying, okay, how far can Tiffany go? It doesn't matter about everyone else, but how far can I go?
Right. And knowing that will be okay.
Yeah.
That your self-worth is not determined by how far can you run today.
Exactly.
And I think that's one thing I just want to add, because I always saw Tiffany, and I knew Tiffany from even before she became a life coach, just from like out and about. We were kind of in the same circles at one point, and just I would see her, and I remember you running a lot and kind of sharing that, triathlon and kind of your journey there, and I would just be motivated just from that. I'm like, wow, this girl is like amazing with like the competitive edge. And now listening to you, when you're going through these struggles that a lot of people go through, it's that struggles in silence, right? And not sharing what's really happening, and portraying that beautiful image that you had. Let's talk about the community helping break that negative stigma when it comes to mental health. Just going into that suffering in silence, if you can just elaborate a little bit about what would the community do to help break the stigma on mental health, just, from your journey?
Well, for me personally, and what I think would help with a lot of people, is really to learn about yourself. Be able to understand where you come from, and be educated on that. Because I feel like once you have a good understanding of who you are as a person, you can turn around and be compassionate for others, and actually humble yourself and understand, wow, like not everyone is as fortunate as me, and being able to maybe turn around and take your hand and lift somebody up. And I think to break the stigma would be helping people, give free education, because I know everyone might not be fortunate to be able to go through different classes to discover themselves, and get clarity. Because I think when it comes with mental health, having, optimal health, or having optimal health for your whole well-being, of not just physical, but spiritually as well, physical, mentally, and spiritually, will give someone a great foundation as far as mental health is concerned. So I think educating people on learning how to find themselves, and then of course educating them on what different types of mental health issues are, would definitely help break the stigma.
And that's something we obviously at NAMI, that's why we exist, and that's why we have free resources and free classes. We have peer-to-peer classes. We have for people who are going through it themselves, through whatever they may be going through. Family to family classes where you're trying to help a loved one, and then we have support groups as well, and everything is peer led, which I think can be really key in terms of that, removing some of the stigma and the judgment, because NAMI really focuses on walking the journey with people. We can't fix everything, but we can do this together, and that's why it's so crucial for things like you being willing to tell your story today, and to be honest and share about it's a journey for you, and that as recently as, you know, X number of months ago, this was a new layer that had to be worked on. We are all works in progress, and so that is certainly crucial to our mission, and we really appreciate you speaking to that as well.
Of course, yeah. I love that Nami does that for sure, because that is something that I do as well, you know, in my coaching business. And also before I started coaching, there are two women in particular that I kind of, you know, took under my wing. And one of them was in high school. You know, I saw her, she was a family friend, and I was, you know, I was like, let's hang out. Let's do something together. I see that you're struggling. I see that, you know, you sounds like you would like a good soundboard. You look like who I was when I was younger. So we would hang out, or take her to the gym, teach her how to swim, go for coffee and walks. And, you know, I feel like it helped her a little bit. And even to this day, know that there's someone that she can pick up the phone and call. And we have a great friendship now, which is wonderful. There was another girl as well. I recently lost her to suicide a couple years ago, but she and I just clicked. And I would do the same thing with her. You know, I would take her to the gym. I showed her healthy lifestyle tips. But obviously I wasn't, you know, I cannot control the controllables, obviously, but I was there for her, with her in her journey, doing what it was that I could do to support her.
And I think that's the greatest gift we can give anybody, regardless of the circumstances, is our constant presence. And in whatever way we can let people know that they're not alone. And I know I need people to do that for me. So
I know. I think everyone needs a little bit of help. I don't care where you are. Everyone can use a little bit of help.
And there is no shame in that.
Exactly, because there's no cap, and no one has any kind of rule set of how far, or, you know, someone could go. So it's an amazing thing. And of course, there's people that think that they're, you know, stuck on a hamster wheel. The funny thing is, everyone's been on a hamster wheel before. Like, everyone has been in that situation. And for me personally, coaches have always helped me get off the hamster wheel, at least direct me in the right direction. And talking to people in general that need help, it's kind of like, it's humbling. You know, it's like, you can get through this, right? You can persevere, because there was a time that I would roll over and hit the snooze button, right? I had no discipline. And it wasn't until someone came to me and kind of told me, you know, this is what you're doing to your life, you know, this is what you're doing to our friendship that's going on here. And, you know, from there, things started to turn. And I know with a lot of people, just being taught to realistically of what is going on in their life, because a lot of people might just not know that they're stuck, right, can actually help them progress and start moving in the right direction. And walking with them along the journey is huge, because that accountability and support, it's amazing, because we cannot do life alone, right? I mean, I feel like you can walk into life blindfolded and try to find it your own way with your own intuition, and you can only go so far. But like with other people around walking you along on your journey, the sky's the limit, right?
So. I know we talked about, you know, life in general, as you're discussing, it's a journey. You're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to learn as you're going. But I know that you mentioned this before. You said, I'm not sure whoever said making a habit takes 21 days.
Yes.
So can we elaborate on that? Because I hear that all the time. I'm like, and it crosses my mind. I'm like, 21 days, but realistically, that's not a right number, right?
It's not. I'm not sure who. I should probably Google it when you get off the phone. I'm not sure who said that, because if you think about it, take it for instance, anyone that's having a, you know, unhealthy eating disorder or unhealthy relationship to food, and they've been doing it for 10 years, you know, and then someone's telling, well, 21 days, unrealistic. Is that realistic? Right? Or you can look at someone that's trying to say, okay, I want to try decreasing my chocolate intake when I only started eating, hypothetically, chocolate in the past couple of months. Like, that's more plausible in 21 days. Because I think it takes more of like 60 to 120 days for someone to start creating new habits. And it's not going to be, you know, that's a pretty big goal to start transitioning from one way of eating to another within a 21-day period. So I mean, again, it kind of like goes back to the beginning of the conversation. Let's break this up in small pieces. So maybe we can start with you becoming aware of what it is that you're eating, right? And then we can be like, okay, so for this week, what we're going to do is we're going to start playing with, I don't know, let's say proteins. So we're going to start playing with the different types of proteins that you eat and how does it make you feel. And what I find is that a lot of people, including myself, start doing it with all different types of food. So you start discovering what is good for you. And I mean, that's something that you can do within a week, right? And that's already starting creating a healthy habit. So in 21 days, if you can imagine, they're just starting understanding what is good for their body in 21 days. I mean, it's going to be sky high, and you can kind of keep building on top of that.
Exactly. That's something that when I started kind of my fitness journey, and I've kind of fallen off a little bit, but that was something that was embedded with that number, that actually it created stress, because I would always just say, oh wow, I hit the 21 days, and now I'm not there yet. So I would fall off back and forth, but it's exactly what you're saying. It's really kind of those long-term baby steps, 60 days, 90 days, it might sound like a lot, but it's really not. And that's when you're really going to start learning, especially when it comes to food. There's so many things, like I just found out myself that dairy is not good for me. It just doesn't do well for my body. And I literally love milk. Like I love milk for everything. And then I started just getting, these reactions to it. And had a friend that was kind of guiding me through these, changes with food. And she was like, I think you need to change your dairy, like stop drinking milk. And I'm like, what? No way. That like, I remember my mom used to make fun of me because, they would, within my family, they would always tease me being the youngest. They would say, oh, she's got to have her little cup of milk with everything. But now that I realized that it was affecting me personally. Now that when I drink it, it just, makes me feel constipated. It makes me feel bloated. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the darn milk. And now I slowly, when they said you need to stop, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to stop drinking them. Like, there's no way. Like, what are the options? And now I don't even miss it anymore. Now I have other options and I think for me, and you tell me if a lot of your clients, for me personally, once you kind of have to omit something that is affecting your health, I just was like, I didn't have a clue of what other options were. So once I knew someone coaching me and guiding me what those other options were, it kind of helped me, kind of gravitate a little bit more better to kind of omit that item.
It's true. No, it's very true. Recently, I had a client reach out to me asking me for other dairy options as well. And I'm like, honestly, I couldn't guide you in the right direction. I don't really go that way. But one thing I do is nutritional yeast, and that kind of makes different foods kind of creamy. So I do have a lot of clients come to me asking me, what is it that I can eat instead of this? Like, what other options do we have? And to be honest with you, it's just something that her or him and I would have a conversation with. It's like,
got it.
What do you like? What do you normally buy? What's on the ingredient list for a certain recipe? How can we, replace it with someone different? And usually it's not that hard for many people to transition to something different. It is sticking with it and knowing that it's going to be better for yourself. Because again, creating awareness for something that's not good for your body that makes you feel sick, it's the first step to actually keep building and making sure that you stick with the right food choices.
Awesome. So I want to kind of go back into your story. I know you touched on it in the beginning of the live, but as far as that hardest point, which is, after your mother's passing, that relationship that you got out of. And I feel as women, we go through that. I know Shannon and I had, briefly discussed just kind of when a relationship ends, that's very hard on you, very, very emotionally exhausting. Share a little bit about how you felt during those 10 years, leading up to that, and just what helped you overcome that moment.
Well, I was definitely miserable in the 10 years. As hard as I tried to get off the hamster wheel, because I wanted to get off desperately. I wanted to, I couldn't, and I kept going towards unhealthy coping mechanisms, and I was never fulfilled. I was always left wanting more. And I was just, there's part of me that wanted to be expressed, right? And I ignored the signals of my body and viewed it as hunger for other things. And again, whenever I got into a 5-year relationship with my best friend, now ex-fiance, She was a no filter type gal. She told me how it was, and she was the one that I actually trusted with everything and listened to. And she told me exactly what I was doing to my life, how it was affecting our relationship and her as well. And what was one of the reasons why we broke up. So that right there, having the accountability of someone actually, you know, rooting me on every day to become a better person was something I needed. And a big reason why, you know, you don't walk alone in life. Like, it's amazing how one person can transform your life. And so it was after we left, after we broke up, again, no money, I was broke, I just graduated college, no friends, because, you know, I had to nix certain people, which was almost everyone in my life at that time, because they were not serving me very well. You know, moving back to my parents' house, that's when things changed, because again, I had to start feeling again, you know, and drugs wasn't an option. You know, I wasn't going to go back to my old friends, because I told myself, we're not going to do this. Like, we're not going to go back to that life. I was miserable. That's when I really started, again, meditating and running to get out of that. And those healthy habits kind of started slowly getting incorporated into my life, like that.
I think that's really good to showcase when we're talking about, you know, struggles and our own life journeys. We've all had our own struggles. Is the stories, you know, just listening to you, just being so vulnerable and being open about that experience, because I think that alone just kind of helps another individual, that they feel completely utterly alone at that moment. It's a chance that you're showing that you can overcome it, and it's still a life journey. It's still up and down, and it's still going to be a progression.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of people fail to remember that it is a journey, right? They think it's a one and done type thing, and it's not. You know, you learn something, you pick up the pieces, and you keep moving forward. And you're going to learn something else. You know, that's just part of being human. And a lot of people, you know, my clients and others in general, is something that they forget. They think everything's going to change in 21 days or 90 days, and it's like, no, it's a journey. So what I'm about to walk with you on your journey in 90 days for my program, for instance, it's like you can reuse this over and over again. And it's not just for your health. Like, you can take the energy and apply it to your activities that you do at work, in your relationship, in your spirituality. So it's setting you up for success, and making sure that, you know, you're kind of getting off topic here a little bit.
So let's talk about, you know, self-esteem and confidence. I know those are two very powerful words to kind of a lot of people are like, oh, just, you know, you look so confident, and confidence just seems like it's something that's just easy to attain. But talk to me about ways to build your self-esteem, and how have you helped yourself with that, you know, gaining of self-confidence even now?
Well, with self-esteem, I think, and self-confidence, I think the best way to view it is through self-care, right? I think if you're caring for yourself, your self-esteem is going to naturally rise. So simple things that I do. And again, just part of habit stacking, I guess you can say. Take an existing habit that you're already doing, and, you know, take a self-care habit and put it together. So what I started to do, and go to the grocery store, for instance, I buy myself flowers. Well, now plants, they live longer. And that itself is kind of like an instant boost of energy. You know, not only are you caring for something, you have something beautiful to look at. It makes you smile. Even getting massages, you know, stuff like that is like self-care. Putting lotion on your feet, as crazy as that sounds, that's like self-care. It's stuff like that, just boost your overall self-esteem. And of course, setting boundaries and honoring yourself. So being able to say no to things that are going to be draining your energy, or things that are not in line with what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your life. And of course, creating all these new habits and creating new self-esteem or self-care habits into your lifestyle, we still sometimes get the self-sabotaging behaviors that come in, and we fall off track, which is okay, right? It's all about learning to recognize when those self-sabotaging behaviors come in, which a lot of times that can be either someone feeling, oh, I've been so good, so I'm going to go go after this cake, right? And before you know it, you're going to slide right back into what was comfortable. Another way that shows that for self-sabotaging behaviors is that, you feel like you're going to lose something. So that was something that was big for me. It's like, oh, well, my friend made me this. I have to eat it or they're going to leave me. So it's a different way that self-sabotaging can show up in your life, and knowing when it's going to happen is prime, because what you can do is make a list of either self-care things you can do, like buying yourself flowers, getting a massage, putting lotion on your feet, going for a run, to actually start replacing it. So say you're walking in, to your mother's household and she made you some dish and you need to eat it because you feel like she's going to leave you if you don't, and instead you can tell yourself, you know what? My mom loves me, I love myself, and I respect myself. I'm going to, maybe go buy myself flowers, or maybe I'm going to pick up the phone and have a deep conversation with someone, or maybe with my mother instead, to kind of help ease out of that self-sabotaging behavior. And of course, the other thing when it comes to habits, I like talking about this, about the brain. Our brain loves and thrives on pattern and routine. So creating a new habit, a lot of times the self-sabotaging behavior will pop up. Our brains are like, this is really uncomfortable, so I'm going to revert back to what is comfortable. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of us cannot stick to a healthy habit, because we've been doing one thing for years and we fail to replace it with a nourishing one. So when it comes with self-care and self-esteem, having backup plans of nourishing habits of what to replace an existing one that's not doing you service is definitely going to build up your self-esteem and self-confidence.
Two thoughts on that. Isn't it true that we literally have grooves in our brain from, seriously, from over, I believe, I don't think I made this up, that from repetitive behavior over the years. And you literally have to retrain your brain to smooth out those ruts that have gotten in there. And it's because of repetition that happens. And so it actually makes perfect sense that it would be, literal biological sense that we would revert to the deeper groove, to whatever we've been doing more of. But that's why it's even more important that we have to try to make newer, deeper grooves to replace those. And I love what you're saying in terms of making a list. A therapist of mine once, in a somewhat different context, but I love the notion of a mental health toolkit. What's in your box that you don't have to think about. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key too, is when you're in the moment, that's not the time to figure out what's going to help me make a better choice right now. But if you've got a resource there that you don't even have to think about, I think that can serve, on a lot. That can serve on the lighter level of keeping a healthy snack in your car, to the really heavy stuff of I'm in trauma, I'm in trouble. Which choice do I make? I'm going to choose from the good list that I know that will be better for me in the end. So, So yeah, I think that's applicable on a lot of levels.
Yeah, it is. And also just knowing that knowledge in general is helpful for a lot of people, just to understand not only why is it that I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, because I've programming my brain to do this consistently over time, and I'm going to have to rewire it, which is a beautiful thing, right? Like we can rewire our brains.
We really can. We actually have that control, but it does not take 21 days. So every time you all keep mentioning that, I just keep flashing to the covers of magazines as you're checking out at the grocery store, where I become convinced every week that surely I can change my life if I will just buy this magazine. And then I'm like, how many times have you done that before? And did it work in 21 days or 14 days or what? Yeah. So anyway.
And then that becomes a habit, right? So that becomes a habit. It's like, oh my gosh, 21 days, I smashed it. And then it's another hamster wheel. So yeah, definitely. Another thing that people could do to help learn to create new healthy habits that stick is learn to let go. Easier said than done.
I was going to say, yeah.
Learning to let go and humble yourself of pretty much everything and act as if you were a child, 8 years old, because children are like sponges. They soak up all energy or all this information. And of course, as adults, we bring all these experiences along with us. And so as a child, being very curious about different things in life, to help start changing the habits. So it's
yeah.
So we have a question here as far as if you fall off the if you fall off the wagon, how do you get up and stay motivated again?
Uh,
What would you tell a client that comes to you and it's just falls off and they take that fall off really hard?
it's okay. It's okay. Um, first of all, it's good for you to share with someone else, that you fell off the wagon, because that person can be your accountability as far as getting back up. That's how I coach through my clients. Obviously I appreciate that they tell me, first of all, they fell off the wagon, because being honest is huge. That's how you do change. You have to be honest. And then I know with me personally, I always connect myself to my why. Why am I doing this? And other people can do that as well. And that's what we do in the beginning stages. Like, what are your goals? Why is it that you're doing this? It's not because you want to lose 20 pounds. It might be because you want to feel better around your husband, because it makes you feel more confident, so there's always more layers than one would actually expect of why it is that they're doing what they're doing. And another thing, my father, he always tells me to persevere. And he's been telling me that since a child. So in my brain, I'm like, if I fall, I'm going to stand up and keep going. If I'm crying, I am going to keep going, and just keep persevering forward, and know that you are not alone. And even though you feel like people don't understand, there's people there that are definitely can help you walk along your journey to get you back on your feet.
So what can you tell someone that is in need of help? What advice would you give?
That they're not alone, that they're not alone, that we all have different experiences that come with us in life, and that though no one can feel what you're feeling, we can definitely relate to you. That you need to trust the process, which is a hard one for a lot of people to do. Because a lot of times people feel like they don't feel like they're heard correctly. But if you are to trust the process, and it's been a proven system that works for people, take one step at a time and do what it is that you can do. If you can't take 10 steps, take one step. Keep moving forward.
As far as like your journey now, we're 2021, looking back, what were some of those coping skills that you learned as you're progressing in your journey that you can share with everyone?
The coping skills I've learned has to do a lot with mindset work. So I like to do an exercise in the morning, or pretty much any time during the day, that kind of tunes into, okay, what does Tiffany believe right now? What are the circumstances in life? Give me one big thing for me, I guess I'll share, is time. I'm a huge time person. I felt like I had no time in the world. So what I do is the circumstances is that you have 24 hours in a day, right? It's not going to change. It's a proven fact. You can go to court and prove it, right? And in my head, I'm like, how can I position this so the end result is going to be good? So I might position it, well, everyone has the same time in the world. How does that make me feel? Well, it makes me feel like it's fair. Everyone wants everything to be fair, right? And so because of that, my reaction from that is like, okay, so I'm going to keep progressing forward and doing the task at hand. And the result is going to be, I have more time, everything's fair. So those are one type of coping skill that I use. Another one to cope with is obviously triathlon, keeping open communication with my coach and with my PT of what's going on. So they kind of like help me along the way with that. Also, what else? Therapy. So therapy is a good one too that I use. And another one, acknowledgement. So helping me cope with life is acknowledging other people of how they have done a great job. So even the guy at the grocery store, I'm like, thank you so much for bagging up my groceries. I greatly appreciate it. Because when you do that, it kind of gives you a boost of energy. The other person gets a boost of energy, and everyone will be a little bit more happy. So those are a few coping skills.
If someone wants to kind of join your program, how can they find you? What's your website? What's your social media? I know, Shannon, you've posted a couple on the chat.
Yeah, so on Facebook and Instagram, you can look up Tiffany Mendelson. And I do have a page as well. You can look up under my name, Life and Health Style Coach for Tiffany Mendelson. And then my website is my first and last name as well.com.
Awesome. So now let's just talk about something fun. What's the latest thing you can think of, or what experience that just made you laugh? Share an experience that just kind of made you happy, made you laugh in the last month.
Made me happy and laugh in the last month.
Which is really saying something, because we've had quite a month here in Texas.
So I guess being on here is absolutely insane and happy. I'm trying to think that made me laugh, and just, you know what really made me laugh is realizing that I had insoles in my shoes that were actually hurting me more than it was. It sounds silly, hurting me more than it was doing me justice. And it's just funny to me. I'm like, it's funny. It's almost a year I wear these insoles, and it was something that was kind of like holding me back. So you can only laugh about it.
You realize it and you're like, wait a minute.
But I love that but I love those things because you realize it and you're like, wait, I have control over this.
Right?
This I can do something about. Snowpocalypse, not so much, but yeah, that's great.
Yeah, fun stuff.
So what's next for you in your journey, as a person, as an individual, as a coach? What are you looking forward to this year or even next year? What's your next endeavors?
My next endeavors is to continue helping people and, of course, grow personally. I feel like I can only coach as far as I am willing to go. So I am willing to go see how the best person that I can be, and also help others do the same. Obviously, I want to grow my coaching business. I want to grow in my day job, and with triathlon, well, I just want to see how far I can go, because that stuff is fun for me. So that's what's going to be going on.
That's great. Well, we just so appreciate you taking this time. You're clearly very busy if you're in your third city of the day. It means a lot that you took this time out. And also modeling what it is to take time out is important for us to see as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Thank you everybody for watching too.
Thank you, everyone. We'll have the Facebook Live. If you guys want to share Tiffany's live, we'll have it on our Facebook. And then don't forget to follow us on social media, NAMI Greater Houston, on Instagram, and of course, Twitter, NAMI Houston, and here on Facebook. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will see you next Tuesday.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.